Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with two partners that are starting a business, and I can't wait to get this started. It's David Ron and Vic Friday from Zecurity Tech. How you doing, guys?
Doing great, Warren.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, this is my first time doing partners, so this is going to be unique and fun, and I get two perspectives. I get two for the price of one, so I feel like I'm really getting bargain. This is a BOGO for me.
Mm-hmm. We're happy to oblige.
I love it. I love it. So tell me, first of all, why Zecurity? I got to know that. Tell me about the name.
Vic?
Oh, we had another partner who has since passed away, but he was a really good marketing guy, and he came up with the name Zecurity, making it like security, but with a Z, kind of with a technical flair to it. So it was just one of his creative ideas.
Very cool. I think naming is really an interesting thing in itself, isn't it? Like trying to be unique, but trying not to be too unique as you describe your company.
Yeah, it seemed to fit when he came up with it, and so we just went with it.
You guys remember like the yellow pages and when everybody would be like AAA security or AA this, so they would be first in the listings. Remember that, guys?
Yes, we are all of that vintage, for better or worse. So
and now it's a completely different search, but you're still trying to appear at the top of the search no matter what it is. So
you don't have to be aardvark something to get at the top, right?
Aardvark security tech. That'd be interesting. Okay, so tell me about like what makes you. I have some understanding, but for the common man like me, what makes your product different from other cybersecurity?
Sure, Vic, you want me to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what Zecurity is a cybersecurity product company, cybersecurity idea company. And what makes us really radically different than everything else in the market is really two main things. Number one, everybody else is software. And what's the problem with software? Software is logic. Logic is math. Math works for you, Warren. Math works for me. No matter what fancy algorithm you come up with, it can be hacked. So technology is hardware. And the key to that hardware is something called non-flashable memory, meaning that you cannot change the way our hardware works from an external source. So once we put our hardware in line to protect a system, nobody that you don't want to can come in and actually change how it works. So we now control the situation. That's step one. Step two is all of the software out there, whether it be firewalls or whatever, operate based on what's essentially an identity basis, meaning they, where's the code coming from? Who's sending the code? They have lists. That's the whole update issue with software. Software has to be updated all the time. You know, the CrowdStrike issue that we all had fun with a couple months ago, that was actually a faulty update. It wasn't even a hack. And the reason they're doing that is because there are 500,000 new malware every single day.
Wow.
And so it's literally impossible to keep up with the list of malware. And so all of the software operates based on the known world. If it knows that it's a malware, it blocks it. Now, then you also have AI, which is now getting more popular. And the way AI works is they look through your network, or they're looking at what the code's coming in, and they're trying to make an educated guess. Is it bad? Or has an anomaly already occurred in your network? Well, it's already an anomaly. It's already in your network. The average time that malware ransomware sits in your network before you figure out that it's there is about 270 days. So
Wow.
they're doing fun stuff before you even know it. So we're different because we operate based on what we call a behavior process, meaning that when every packet comes into your network to tell whatever it's going to do, it has to talk to the hardware at the machine level and tell that hardware, what's my function? Am write? Am I going to read, delete, create, etc.? What is the command that I'm going to do? Well, read's okay. Everything else is bad. There's no reason why anyone from outside your network should be able to come in and write or change or delete or do anything to your network. And that's how malware and ransomware get into a network. They execute a write command, they install themselves inside your network, they propagate, they do whatever they're going to do, exfiltrate, etc. So simply, although as you might imagine, it took us a little while to get there, our hardware looks for those commands. If it's a read, it gets through. Anything else is blocked. Absolutely doesn't go through. And so there are two ways into our hardware. There's this read-only side where what that does is it allows people, for instance, let's say you have like a SCADA system or financial information that maybe a lot of people ought to be able to monitor. People need to be able to see it, but you never want those people who are monitoring the ability to change. In today's software world, if they're monitoring, they can change. With our machine, absolutely, you cannot change if you're monitoring. But then, of course, the operator or your CFO who's going to change financial information, they come in through the read-write side, and they have the ability through a dedicated VPN, two-factor authentication, username, password, to make those changes. So it really is pretty radically different than anything else that's out there by allowing people to look without being able to change, and also just literally stopping anybody from writing. So for instance, all the denial of service attacks that are going on, no problem. That's the quick overview.
Wow. And I actually understood that. So
well,
good
job. We try.
That's great.
Yeah. Because I mean, one of the things that's super complicated for you guys is like, you got to differentiate yourselves from your competitors. And that sounds easy, but in any business, and I think especially this business, it's got to be hard. Have you found that to be true?
No question. And part of the issue is, as my partner Vic loves to say, if you started in this business after 1990, you've never seen a secure system, period. Wow. And so the whole mindset since the internet age has been, we solve this with software. Well, and I'm stealing a little bit of Vic's thunder here, and maybe this is a beautiful time since we're doing this both together. Let me pass it off to Vic, who can really tell a little bit more about his journey, his story, and how he managed to come up with this idea.
Thanks, David. I'll just emphasize a couple of things that David has mentioned. So I'm an IT guy, been in IT since 1979, which is longer than most people have been alive, right? So there's two camps in the IT world. There's the software camp and the hardware camp. Those camps don't talk well with each other historically. And you can spend your whole career on one side or the other between hardware and software. So the hardware guys look at cybersecurity and they say, hey, cybersecurity is a software issue, so we don't have to really worry about it on the hardware side. All we need to be concerned about is just making connections between machines. And we'll make our machines smaller, which in fact makes them faster. So you may have heard the latest announcement about the fastest chip in the world kind of thing. So that's just a series of making your hardware smaller. But so the hardware guys think cybersecurity is a software problem. The software guys think cybersecurity is a software problem. So they take it on themselves and try to solve the issue of cybersecurity. But as David mentioned, on the software side, it's all based on logic. And when you get to that level, none of us are smarter than the other. So if I figure out some magic mathematical software formula to secure my data, you can figure out the inverse of that formula and break my code. So by definition, all software is hackable. So essentially, in order to solve the cybersecurity issue, you have to take control back over the conversation, which is what we actually had in the 80s. in the 80s, we had lots of users on our system, but we had full control because we controlled the hardware side. We kind of believed that we had control of security, but yet the hardware was actually what was actually providing the solution. So we started from that premise that all software is hackable. So in order to take control of the situation, we had to involve the hardware side. And when you get down to the level where you're dealing with the way machines talk with one another, then you can take control of the communication going back and forth between machines, and you can come up with solutions. So we feel like we've come up with a really good solution, and it really, I call it the 5-pound bag of sugar. It can be used in all kinds of recipes and all kinds of solutions to solve this problem if you know what you're doing on the technical side.
Okay, that's helpful. It's funny how the old ways sometimes can become the new ways, just with a, you know, with a twist, right? With an upgrade, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So by building a solution that runs on behavior, not identity, it takes away the big problem of updating and trying to play this cat and mouse game of identifying malware and ransomware and putting an identifier on it and then distributing that identifier to all of your checkpoints. It's a big cat and mouse game that can never be solved. And that's why we continue to read about things in the news of this was hacked or this was leaked, that sort of thing. It's just a game you can't win. So,
Well, it seems like there's more bad guys than good guys working to try to steal stuff. Would that be a fair assumption?
well, today you have all kinds of, you have really companies that have been established to try and hack people. It's no longer somebody, you know, some kid trying to be the next hero of his town because he hacked into some big entity. It's really organized crime, is what it is. So we're fighting against people that have spent a long time trying to get into people's systems, and they're going to continue, especially with the AI. That's just more software that they're going to use and try to infiltrate systems. So you have to, the thing about computing or information technology, it has to run on hardware. You know, you can spend all your time focusing on all the software applications out there, but none of them can run unless they're on some type of hardware. So you do have, you know, we're really dealing with physics, not logic here.
Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. Okay, so tell me, you guys, is that you, Vic, that came up with the idea basically then to do this?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So then you decide, you came up with this idea. It's revolutionary. It requires funding and marketing and development. How did you put your company together, and how did you decide, hey, look, this is the thing. We're all in. We're putting our chips all in on this deal.
Well, early on, our partner I already mentioned, he took a look at it, and he wasn't a technical guy, but he was in sales and marketing. And he said, you know, you've got intellectual property here. We need to get hooked up with an attorney. And I had always wanted to have an attorney that had skin in the game, so to speak. And he connected David and I together. And neither one of us would be here without the other. So it's worked out really well because David is an expert corporate attorney, and he knows all of those things that I don't. And so it's worked out really well. We got hooked up and we've been working together ever since.
Thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, look, I was a programmer before I went to law school, so I know enough to be dangerous. I programmed back in the day when it was secure. I was for 30 years a corporate securities attorney here in Houston, and about probably 20 to 25% of my practice was representing tech companies. So even though I did a lot of oil and gas related work, I was still doing a lot of tech work. And so when I was introduced to Vic and this other partner, it sounded really interesting. We started, part of the issue that we've had as a company was it was a great idea by Vic, but it was way ahead of its time.
Mhm.
When he came up with it, my firm at the time helped him with the patent, but it was impossible to build with the technology that was out there. So we had to kind of wait until the motherboards got to certain specifications to be able to actually build this thing. And so time passed. I ended up actually my law firm had invested in the company. I bought the law firm out when I switched law firms, and then I funded the company through its early days. We were finally able to build a prototype maybe about 5 years ago, and prove that the idea was solid, that it actually worked. And then, we hit the COVID fun, and we started talking to some VCs, et cetera. Everybody had pulled back. And so we decided to go out and raise funds on our own, which is what I'd been doing for 30 years for other companies.
Hmm.
So we did a friends and family round. We raised money enough to be able to get us through development of the hardwall. And our hardwall is now in full production. We have 4 patents,
Wow.
and we are, moving forward. And so we've done all the blocking and tackling, and now it's about getting those customers and the kind of harkening back something you said earlier, Warren. Uh, Look, when you've got a very different idea that is completely different than anything else that people use, it's tough. The biggest issue is trying to find those people who either have been hacked and go, there's got to be a better way, or people who like to live on the cutting edge of technology and go, well, okay, that's a different idea. I'm willing to give that a shot. So trying to find those early adopters in particular industries is the task that we've got. But we're in a great spot now, and it really is just about hitting those early adopters and then building out the company.
That's great. Yeah. It's being on the leading edge of technology and having people that have an established way of handling, in this case, security that they think is relatively safe. Because if you haven't got hacked, you feel like it's probably working, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kind of the issue that, I'm not going to get, as the IT guy, I'm not going to get fired if I hire IBM.
Mhm.
A little dated, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so you are dealing with people, you're dealing with people and their jobs. And for someone to take a risk on a new technology, even if it looks good, you've got to have the right situation for someone to be willing to do that. And so, the good news for us is people get hacked every day, and it's not getting better. And so people are slowly realizing that what they're doing is not a solution.
Yeah, you mentioned the cat and mouse game, and I think that's very appropriate because I feel like in my limited understanding of this of security, we're just trying to stay one step ahead of the people that are trying to hack us, and anticipating where they're going to go, and that seems like a recipe eventually for failure. Like we're always, I feel like we're always running. Would that be an appropriate like description of what's going on in the if you're just in software and you don't have this hardwall?
I think about that. The industry has gotten comfortable where they're at. And because they always say, well, no one can stop all hacks. And I, I hear that and I'm going, why why are you saying that? Well, of
Mm.
course, there's, ways of covering yourself, right? But
Mhm.
the industry has gotten very comfortable with software-based solutions.
Mhm.
Okay. And in fact, we've talked to some industry leaders, and their indication to us is they're not really interested in changing the way their products work, even if we have a solution. And the reason they have given us, which floors us to hear, but the reason they've given us is they're making too much money doing what they're doing. And so you have some industry leaders, and I won't name them here, but you have some industry leaders that are not interested in changing anything about their composition of product lines, simply because they're making too much money.
Wow. That's scary, but it makes sense because if our expectation is, hey, look, 90%'s good enough, and once in a while you're going to get hung on with one, but that's why you buy cyber insurance. So therefore everyone's covered. Well, they got the cyber insurance industry, you've got the software industry that's trying to, make money on this thing. And so if you think about the formula for change as dissatisfaction times vision plus first steps has got to be greater than resistance. Y'all are trying to create a big vision, and you got the dissatisfaction of people getting hacked. And those two together, if they're multiples of each other, can actually create enough momentum to get somebody to change. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. And case in point, look at the way CrowdStrike has behaved after their big bungle. They've gone out in these campaigns trying to prove to people that, oh, we're still okay. We're still good. You still need this big monstrosity of updates. In part of my career, I spent 4 years in the database world and in the technical database world. And the complexity of having updates, database updates that run worldwide,
Hmm.
you know, that is ridiculous. It's just flat ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, we've all had situations. I was been in a lot of corporates, and man, you have situations where they try to update and then it doesn't work, and you come in on Monday morning and you're shut down because the update didn't work right, and then you got to revert back to the other one, and now you're wasting time and productivity as well. So that's a very real thing.
Yeah, and then you've got the whole cottage industries on the back end where, since the software is geared for monitor and mitigate, you've got the entire mitigation industry.
Oh,
So,
sure.
the law firms, even, all the consultants, even law enforcement, they're all geared to, you're going to get hacked. So how are we going to deal with it when it happens? Well, that whole industry exists because they can't solve it.
Wow. Wouldn't it be something if that was the same for like cars? So you say your car's going to get stolen. It's just a matter of where and when. So let's just figure out how to deal with it. That would be a pretty sad state of affairs if that's what we're
Yeah,
talking about,
yeah,
wouldn't it?
yeah, exactly. And so, why should, again, you've got a couple things working is most business leaders aren't technical and they
Mhm.
rely on their IT people. And look, I'm not casting aspersion against the entire IT group, but
Sure.
look, the in-house IT people are, overworked and stretched in 57 different ways. And they say, look, the industry says this, I'm going to go with that because that's the best that I can do. And I don't have the time to try and figure out what else to do. And so, therein lies the difficulty, but opportunity, right?
Mhm.
For us. And so, as go through that and, think about, how are you going to deal with these things? Look, by the same token, Warren, we're not a panacea. We don't take care of everything. And in fact, we tell our customers, look, we're not saying use the hard wall and replace everything you've got. The beauty of the hard wall is it's plug and play. It fits in with whatever it is that they've got, whatever software, whatever other things they have, keep it. a lot of that stuff is useful. We've got some solutions coming down the road, for instance, for scanning your network or checking your email, but we can't protect you from yourself. So some of the phishing stuff, if someone gives away their information, there's just not a whole lot you can do, right? So uh, we believe our hardwall is a solution to a lot of the issues. It's not a solution to everything, but it is that combination, and it's the trying to reach then those companies who both on the business and the technical side are thinking ahead of the curve as to how do I get there? I mean, look, the CEO just wants to make sure, hey, I don't want to get hit because every hit is multiple millions of dollars. And we can't, the statistic that I read, which is kind of sad, is most small and medium businesses that get hit with a substantive hack are out of business within 12 months. They just can't. They lose their customers. They lose their reputation. They just lose too much. If you're Target, right, and you got hit, okay, it's not like people are going to stop shopping at Target, right? But that hit cost them multiple tens of millions of dollars. A small business can't afford that, and so there is, at least for us. The big boys aren't going to adopt our solution probably to begin with because they're really big. So it really is those small and medium businesses. And when I say small and medium businesses, I mean, that could still be $100 million revenue company. But, they just don't have the infrastructure or the wherewithal to survive if one of these hits happens.
Wow. Okay, so back to your story now. You got you two guys and then your other partner, rest in peace. And you three guys are moving forward with this idea. You family funded and raised some money, got the prototypes out, and you got a product now, and you've been patient, and now you're starting to go to market. So what does that look like? How do you do it, and how do you manage progress and make progress?
Well, a lot of, at least to begin, again, because we're looking for those early adopters, it's not something that we're going to put out, although we have a website and it has a fun little video that explains our technology. This is not a retail product, right? At the moment. So, it is an enterprise product. So it is about relationships. Look, the world is about relationships, right? And so it is about, both Vic and I grew up in the oil and gas industry, so it's reaching out in those industries. We've made some good connections in the municipal utility district area. Sadly, 10 to 15 of those in Texas alone over the last year have been hacked by Iran and Russia and the Chinese. They haven't done anything horrible. The worst was probably something in Muleshoe where they overflowed a tank, but they're showing that they can do it. And the sad part is if they wanted to, they could bring this country to its knees, which hopefully won't happen, but it could. And so, water, power, anything that's running the SCADA systems that run all the infrastructure in our world. That's a niche that we have specifically worked on. And then we also have another product besides our hardwall called a secure data vault that we are marketing to for more data storage. And the key to that is, for instance, we use that with our own company. We have a hardwall in our cloud that protects our server. All of our Zecurity data is on that server without a firewall, without anything other than a hardwall in front of it. But the beauty is if you remember when we started, we talked about there was on the hardwall, there's a read-only side and a read-write side. In that instance, we turn off the read-only side. So the only two human beings on the planet that can get in and see that data are Vic and myself. And because if you have an IP address in regular world, people can see what's behind it. People can see the architecture, people can see whatever. Because of the way the hardwall is structured, when the read-only is turned off, yeah, you can see an IP address, but you can't see anything else. It's literally a black box. And so, for people with sensitive data, who only their employees should be the ones who should have the ability to see or manipulate it, it's a really great solution. So we've been marketing that to, for instance, hospitals. About 50% of the hospitals keep all their HIPAA data on premises. Also some financial situations, people with their financial data that should never go outside, or will only let go outside what we want to go outside. So, it's about picking your niches, finding the relationships. We have paired with some other companies to work together in specific niches where people have the expertise in that niche that we don't have, but we've got the solution. And it's really then about going company to company, making the pitch and talking to them and trying to get those early adopters, so that then you get enough of a base that then, oh, well, so-and-so's doing it. Oh, well, so-and-so's doing it. And then you start to get the followers and you can push farther into the niches. And so that's really the marketing plan.
Yeah. So you've got to get some users, then you got to get some use cases, and then you got to get referrals.
Right.
In the ideal world, it all comes back down to sales, right?
Yeah. And look, a lot of these niches, everybody in that industry talks to everybody else. There's no secrets, right? For instance, in the municipal utility districts, everybody talks to everybody. So to the extent you can get into a handful of them, they're all going to talk to everybody else and say, hey, guess what we did? And then all of a sudden it explodes. And so that's the plan.
I like it. Okay. So as partners, you're very complementary to each other. How do you, did you agree? Because I get this question a lot, and I emphasize it a lot for groups that are partners, whether it's husband and wife or whether it's 3 or 4 partners, whatever that looks like. Do you all agree on what success looks like?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, even though we come from very different backgrounds, I can't even remember a significant disagreement. Look, I mean, we talk through everything. There may be times where he says, well, I think this, and I say, I think that, and we both explain why we think that, and we come to an answer. But interestingly enough, 98% of the time, the first thing out of our mouths are the same.
Wow.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I would add to that. David and I have an understanding, if one of us has a big opposition to something, we have an understanding that we won't move on that until we're in agreement. And that has really helped, I think, both of us speak up when we really have some reservations about something that we're looking at. But people have all of these horror stories with partnerships, and we haven't experienced that over a long period of time. David knows, and I know, and I mentioned it earlier, both of us know that neither one of us would be here without the other. I might have good technical ideas, but I wouldn't be here without David and vice versa. So we know that we're both key to our success. And we have like goals, and the way we're trying to handle business and the way we treat people, the way we build relationships. I learn from him all the time. He's really, David's unusual in the legal field. Most lawyers are deal killers, and David is a deal maker. And that, I think, I really admire about what he brings to the table. So we both know we wouldn't be here without the other. So that really helps us move along.
Truly deep mutual respect for each other. And it's not to say you can't disagree with me, because we want that, right? You've gotta have enough respect for the other person to be able to speak your mind, and know that when you speak your mind, you're not going to be dismissed. That there will be a true, thoughtful analysis of what you're trying to say, and that we'll get to an answer that works for both of us.
That's brilliant. I love all of that. deep mutual respect, the agreement that we're going to, if we're not both all in on an idea, we're gonna wait on it until we do agree. And then I think just that attitude of humility too, of just like, hey, look, we wouldn't be here without the other one. That's brilliant. Any other advice for partnerships? Because this obviously you guys have figured out a lot here, and have been very successful. Any other advice for folks that are doing partnerships?
Yeah, look, in my career and then also through this, I've seen a lot of these. It sadly or gladly, depending on your perspective, it's a marriage, right? I mean, I talk to Vic every single day, multiple times a day. We don't have an office, we work remotely. But you've got to respect the other person. That's the key, is you've got to respect who they are, where they come from. You've got to understand where they come from, understand what drives them, and be open to what their ideas are. And if they come up with something that isn't what you think, you've got to react accordingly, not fly off the handle, speak, respectfully, and work it out. And that's just like any marriage. You're two human beings. You're not going to agree on everything. Just by definition, you're not, right? But if and the difficult part is, at least to me, is every day isn't wine and roses, right? Particularly in a startup, right? You have some really awesome days where you accomplish something really cool, and then you've got a lot of days where literally you beat your head against the wall. And in a startup, very different than other businesses, I think. In a startup, unless you have the mental fortitude that every no gets you closer to yes, you'll just get crushed, because it's a lot of disappointment. Again, there's some good things, absolutely, but you will hear no much, much, much more than you ever hear yes. And if you can't handle hearing no, startup is not for you.
That's great. Vic, what do you think? Any thoughts on that?
I would just second everything David said. It's fun. The nice thing is, and we both spent time in the corporate world. It's fun from the perspective of you get to decide and you get to make decisions. And if you're not comfortable with that, then, or you don't have a history of that, startup's not for you. You'll be better off going and working for someone else. But if you are not risk adverse, because it is a risk, right? And especially when you have a new product and you're trying to convince people to do something different, there's a lot of adversity. And so it's not, you have to have the mindset that this is what we're going to do. We're going to be successful. We're going to keep after this until we are successful. And that's the attitude. It's kind of like when I married my wife, 42 or 43, don't quote me on that. I told her at the beginning, there's no back door. We're in this for the long haul. And so when there isn't a back door or an escape plan, you're fully devoted to the task at hand. And so we've had a lot of fun, but we're still looking for success. So
yeah, there's so much wisdom there. I love the mindset idea and the fact that, hey, we're all in, burn the ships, we're moving forward. I liked what you said about every no gets you to a yes. And so that's brilliant. I also wanted to, Vic, shoot, you mentioned something here. I got to think what it is. It'll come back to me. I want to catch it. I'll catch it later in this podcast because it was so good. But talk to me about what do you do then? You got this mindset, you got no back door. How do you get the positive mindset every day? Now you got each other, And I suppose that's a piece of it, right? You help each other out.
Oh, no
Well,
question. We lean on each other. You know, I'll have a bad day and he'll talk me up, or he'll have a bad day and I'll talk him up. Uh, but it is at its core, as Vic, it's a mindset, right? It's a myopic view of moving forward, right? And just because something doesn't happen the way you want it to, the answer is there's always a way around. You know, it may not be the way you thought, it may not be the way you wanted, but there's always a different path. And the key to surviving as a startup is being able to find those different paths, and you end up sometimes in places that you did not expect. But every day's an adventure. Every day brings something new, and uh, you've got to keep up that positive attitude. That look, there's a goal, and yes, I may not advance to that goal every single day, but every single day I am doing something little. I'm taking a baby step to get towards that goal. Because you don't accomplish things in big jumps. You accomplish baby steps. And if you take all those little steps, all of a sudden you look up and you realize, wow, look at all that stuff we managed to accomplish because we were just slogging it out every single day.
It's that grind, right? It's being scrappy. Go ahead, Vic. What were you going to say?
I would also add to that, we're seeing indications that the industry is ready for this idea. So when I mentioned earlier, there's two camps in IT. There's the hardware camp and the software camp, but there's not a camp that combines those two, except for you can start to see some indications of that. For instance, whenever you log into your bank account, okay, whenever you put in your username and password at your bank, what's the next thing that happens?
Well, for a lot of them, you got to do a two-step now.
That's right. So the bank sends you a code. Now, where do they send it?
Usually to your phone.
That's
Text.
right. They've introduced hardware into the problem of establishing individual accountability for security. So they've introduced hardware in that solution. Now, why do they think they can use your phone?
They figure you've got it with you, is my guess.
That's exactly right.
3 for
So
3, Warren. Good job.
yeah, there you go. So they have introduced hardware into a cybersecurity problem of establishing individual accountability. Okay, because they make the assumption that you have your phone with you, and also they make the assumption that no one else has your phone. So they've started to recognize, hey, we have to engage other tools in the process of this whole cybersecurity solution thing. And we've taken it many steps farther in our patents and in our design of the hardwall. But we're looking at it from an enterprise level, right? So we're putting together solutions for that kind of new bucket of combining hardware and software to address technical problems. So there are indications that the industry is starting to wake up to that sort of thing, but they haven't yet on the enterprise side. However, they will. When we designed this, the thing is I like to sleep at night. David and I, we like to not worry about things when we go to sleep at night. And this is a solution that helps us do that. We don't worry about our corporate data sitting up in the cloud. We don't worry about someone infecting it with ransomware or malware or something like that. We know it can't happen. It can't physically happen. So that's really the onus. We know we've got the right design, and we just got other products to build and a lot of customers to take care of their problems for them.
Man, that's I love the phone example. I also was thinking about how with another one of my financial folks where I keep money. I guess that's really a bad description of it, but where they won't let you can't request your own money. Like you have to go back. The financial advisor who has access to the system because he's an internal employee has to verify 2 ways that you are requesting the money, or withdrawal in this case. And then he has to go get the withdrawal. So that's sort of the old school when I was thinking about that hard wall. You mentioned something about time. I love this about timing because timing is so important. You guys are very patient and waited until the tech was there to build your solution. And then also market timing is so important because you can have an idea too early. And if you
10 years ago, nobody would talk to us, period. And I'd say luckily, but it's sad because a lot of people are being hurt. But you're right. The timing is ripe for a solution because you read about it every single day. And everybody, you're getting things, every single human in the US is getting letters from somebody. We were hacked. Here's a free year of whatever. Your information is okay. It's happening to everybody. And the dollars that are being spent by every single industry on earth to try to protect themselves or to mitigate after being hacked is insane. And unfortunately, the cybersecurity the insurance just isn't very good at this point because there's no solution.
Yeah.
We think that we can help the insurance industry because by having an actual solution, they can write a real cyber insurance policy. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's one of the goals. So, Warren, I think you're absolutely right. The timing is right for this. You still got to find the people who are willing to take the dive.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay, 2 more questions, then I'll let you guys go. I want to double back to the thing, Vic, that you said, because I figured out what it was. Making decisions. Like if you're not ready to make decisions, you should not have a startup or basically own your own business. I think that's brilliant. Can you talk about that just slightly more? Because there's a great nugget of wisdom that I haven't heard before. And man, you can get seized up in decision making as an entrepreneur and never get anything done.
Well, usually what you have a lot of people in the corporate world. They may be working for someone else. They have things they don't like to do, right? And it's just not fun. And so they dream of having their own company, right? But you really need to take an analysis on yourself. And I think that is probably one of the big things. Are you capable of running a business and making hard decisions? And can you make those and then those decisions not bother you? Like case in point, an example, I had a really good friend that wanted to invest in our company. And I knew this friend. I've known him for a long time. I'm very good friends with him. But I knew his mindset, and I knew that he should not be an investor in a company. As bad as I wanted his money to invest in the company, I just told him no.
Wow.
Okay. And that was, created some hard feelings for a while. But I had to make that decision and not think twice about it because, for reasons I won't go into, which aren't that important. But the deal was the onus was on me to make that decision to say yay or nay. And if you can't make decisions that are hard for you, that are best for the company, then you don't need to be starting your own thing. Find the best job you can and go home at night and have a great time. But you've got to be able to separate business, from family, from hobbies, whatever you do, you've got to be able to have the personal mindset that you're doing what you think is best, and it's okay to do what you think is best.
And there's the beautiful corollary to what he's saying, or maybe an emphasis is regret is a killer. Regret, just a killer.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You have to understand, you are not going to make every one of your decisions is not going to turn out beautifully. You're going to make a decision that you think is the best decision at the time, and it's just not going to turn out to be right. You can't just brutalize yourself because of that. You make a decision, you recognize that it was the best decision you could make at the time, and you move on. And if it doesn't work out, you figure out how to move beyond that. You cannot live in a world of regret. And if that is your personality, startups are not for you.
Wow, that's great. Those are great. Thank you for that wisdom, both of you guys. I appreciate that. Okay, last question. Well, maybe two more, really quick. So I'm a company. Sorry, I'm really enjoying this. This is great.
It's all good.
Okay, so talk to me. What disqualifies me from engaging your services? What's your ideal customer look like? I know you mentioned municipalities and hospitals and all those people, but I'm thinking about small, medium-sized businesses that there might be owners that are watching this thing or listening. How should I engage you, or what would that look like?
Well, let's talk about maybe what we aren't, because that sometimes is very helpful. We will get there, but at the moment, the hard wall really isn't geared for what I call human systems. So for instance, you have a company, you got 50 employees, they're sitting in an office. Oh, I want to stick the hard wall in front of my router because I don't want anybody penetrating my network. Well, the problem is you've got humans inside behind that router, moving in and out, trying to do stuff, trying to download things. It stops everything. It means you're non-functional. And that's why, for the moment, the hard wall is really best for those non-human systems, those infrastructure systems, or pure data. So one of the things that is sort of gaining traction now is data segmentation, meaning that, look, you don't keep all your information in one spot. And so if you've got specific data that, hey, this data maybe is a little more important to me, or fewer people go back and forth with this data, not necessarily how that do their everyday operations, but you can consider taking that data or having that system protected by a hard wall, because it's segmented out, and it's that's specifically what I want to protect. Again, on the infrastructure systems, it's easy because there's no human being inside the infrastructure trying to get out. It's just infrastructure operating. For data, it's more about who needs to access that data. And if you've got data that is specific to, for instance, just your employees or just some subset of employees, that's the kind of protection that we can provide. We've got about 5 or 6 other products that are on our, as Vic mentioned before, to pull up his 5-pound bag of sugar analogy, the technology that went in the hard wall, we can adapt to various other technologies. And we got 5 or 6 other tech that's coming down the road. We just haven't developed those yet. We developed the hard wall. We need to get out. We've got to market the hard wall, make that work with either the hard wall or the secure data vault. But down the road, we do have things that can protect email systems. We have things that can search your entire system for true zero-day threats. We've got communication systems. We got a variety of other things coming down the road. But for now, it really is, do you have a system or specific data that you want to make sure can't be infiltrated?
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Okay, final question. Any other advice for entrepreneurs or startups that you guys have? Because you've given me so much. It's been awesome. But anything else on your mind that you would say, hey, don't do this, do this, or I learned this?
Vic, you got anything?
The only thing I would add to that is I think David has done a good job of, when we raise money, when you start dealing with venture capitalists, you have to understand that VCs have a different goal than you have, because VCs typically, they may or may not be working with their own money, but a lot of the times they're working with someone else's money. And so they have financial obligations to those people that they're using their money. Those obligations may or may not align with what you need as far as an investment goes. So we spent a long time in the VC world talking to VCs, and I learned personally that I don't work well with VCs typically, because it's not that they're bad or we're bad. It's just that our goals did not align. So you have to understand what the goals are of people that you talk to raise money. And I think that's you need to take a step back and analyze. I think that's twice I've mentioned it. You have to be able to step back and analyze the situation, and make valid assessment. One thing that always used to really bother me in the corporate world is we would have some corporate problem to solve, and the first thing the management would do is put together a root cause analysis group. Okay. And I've never seen a root cause analysis group actually analyze the root cause of whatever problem they were trying to solve. You know, those groups of people just they have their personal bias that come into the solution. So you have to be able to analyze things, even if it's to your own detriment, or even if it is to your own weakness. You have to be able to recognize where your weaknesses are when you're looking at a certain problem to solve. And you have to realize you may not be the smartest person for a particular solution, but there's a saying, there's a spot on the bus for everybody, mostly, but it's about putting the right people in the right seat on the bus. Okay. You have to be able to put the right people in the right places. And then if you recognize that someone isn't in the right place, you have to be able to make those changes. And sometimes that may be yourself, to take yourself out of the solution and let other people who are more skilled or have more experience in a certain area. So,
yeah, I like that. Take the emotion out of it. Humility comes up again. Timing, I think, for VCs, your timing may not be their timing, right? That's a piece of it too.
And it's not a bad thing. Those can get pretty personal pretty quickly.
Yes.
And sometimes you just have to recognize we don't have the same goals. And
startup, that patient capital when you start is really, really important. And the only thing I might add is the quote I love is the Wayne Gretzky quote: skate to where the puck's going to be rather than where the puck is. And that has to be your mindset as in the startup. Everything you do, where am I trying to get? What am I doing today that's going to help me get to where the puck's going to be, rather than what am I trying to do today just because today is today.
Yes. Brilliant. Okay. That's a great finish for you guys. I am very thankful for you, Vic and David, and I just wish you nothing but the best. I know you guys have a revolutionary idea, and it's going to be a game changer for the whole industry. So congratulations on that, and cheers to the future of Zecurity.
Thanks. We really appreciate your time, Warren. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we really do appreciate your time.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
Take care, man. Bye.